38 pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis,
Here comes Mr. Pro.
Andre the Giant.
Gonna get his licks in on the bruiser.
Number one, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
his opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.
Welcome in to another edition of the Retro Wrestling Rewind. As always, I am David Fime, alongside my tag team partner, the true Long Island IZ, Alex G. Last week was a great, amazing show. This week, we're going to Texas. This Tuesday in Texas happened on this date, December 3rd, 1991, in San Antonio, Texas, in front of a glorious, jam-packed 8,000 paid and unpaid fans. Your thought on this show before we even start to dissect it, which it had many matches, but 8 of them were dark.
Yeah, a lot. This was an experiment by the WWF to see if a lower price pay-per-view kind of on short notice would do any business in terms of buy rates. It did get a 1.0 buy rate, which wasn't great. So they went away from this model, I guess, until In Your House. It was interesting because they spent the entire Survivor Series kind of hyping up this Tuesday in Texas. Again, the matches that we did get to see were all like pretty much like, hey, you have the Randy Savage, Jake Roberts was a big feud, and you have Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker. You also had another British Bulldog and Warlord matches, but those are always kind of fun. Although I really want to see that Flair versus Piper match, and Flair gets the win here too. Which is interesting. The other darks are just, they're darks. I mean, it's Greg Valentine versus the Brooklyn Brawler. It's Chris Chavez versus J.W. Storm. It's the Harris brothers taking on Brian Costello and Brian Donahue. Nothing really much there. Again, they did about 400 buy rates here. They didn't even get its own Coliseum home video release. It was released as part of the Super Tape 92. We do get a title change, kind of sort of on this show. Which is interesting. But the most interesting thing that happened on this particular show is the Savage and Jake Roberts angle at the end. It was amazing and completely insane due to the fact that, Jake Roberts slaps Elizabeth. And you're like, holy shit. You know what I mean? Because Elizabeth never got bumped or anything, right? She's like hands off. And for Jake to really, the slap Elizabeth, that's like, oh my God, he's the goddamn devil now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Although they blew this off at the next Saturday's main event, which leads to, they kind of ended abruptly so they could have Savage in that title feud with Flair for WrestleMania 8. But, for what it was, like Jake Roberts is Hitler, literally. Like he is the most villainous person on the face of the earth, and his promos are fucking insane. And I would highly suggest that you insert all the interviews for this particular show on this podcast because they're all amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Jake Roberts fan. I mean, his promos, like you said, him and Flair, outstanding. I mean, Jake Roberts can just. I mean, after watching this, I watched it, back a couple of days ago, and it's like I hated Jake Roberts even more. I mean, like, come on. Really? You're going to hit Miss Elizabeth? Seriously? I mean, who the hell decided to come up with that? Probably Jake, but he was probably...
It was probably Jake. I mean...
He was definitely high on something.
It's a Jake angle.
Yeah.
For sure. And the promos are... Even the Savage promo it's all... The interviews on the shows are amazing. They're just so fucking good. You can't even compare it to anything you see today. Even if you don't like, hey, the matches or whatever, just go on YouTube and watch the video, the interviews. They're fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely. I mean this, like you said, this card is. I mean it's a card.
So here's the deal. Like, so the way it was structured on the Survivor Series was always kind of weird. So they reinstated the Macho Man, and they're gonna have him. They're going to have him, due to the snake bite, they're going to push it back to the next big show they're doing, which was Tuesday in Texas. But it was always confusing. Was this like an emergency pay-per-view because they wanted to have the rematch for Undertaker and Hogan. It's kind of ambiguous the way they set it up with Jack Tunney and that kind of stuff. In terms of kayfabe, I guess they just like, hey, we're gonna have this event over in Texas, and now because of the shenanigans with the world title and Savage, we're gonna put it on pay-per-view. I guess that's the theory, but it wasn't really explained all that great.
Yeah, as we talked about last week, they didn't really recognize the Undertaker as the champion. In future years, what do you think that was? I think I heard him. Yeah.
You always have the Tommy Rich kind of thing, like he only held the belt for a week, blah, 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 all this other shit, right? So I think, if you're trying to build up, especially when he's a babyface, you don't want to mention that, like, hey, yeah, he got beat by Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, somebody
so
say
they kind of just left it out of his quote unquote lore.
Yeah, good thing is he made up for it.
He bounced back from it. So
yeah, he's still fucking around. It's 2020. The first match we had Bret Hart, champion. He's the Intercontinental Champion.
IC champ.
Skinner. Ugh,
I can't tell you how big of a Bret Hart fan I was at this time. Him and Savage were my two number one guys at this point. I love Bret Hart.
Did you have the glasses?
I had the glasses, yeah. 1,000% had the glasses. Here's the thing about the glasses. So the Bret Hart glasses, and I had the pink ones, right?
Of course you did.
There's a rubber tube on the back, and inside the rubber tube, what holds the glasses together are like these two styrofoam balls that goes in there. So like when you tighten it or whatever. So that's what the glasses were made of. They're very, very cheap. And I know Brett still sells them on his website for $50, which is ridiculous.
For how much?
But the glasses were fucking awesome.
$50?
$50. Like, I wouldn't buy one today.
No.
And they fell apart relatively quickly, especially 10 years old.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely had Bret Hart sunglasses. Bret Hart was my man, 1,000%. Him and Savage, and I was so happy when he turned single and he won the IC belt, and I was ecstatic when he became WWF champion. So it was awesome, good stuff.
That's sweet. You had the pink Bret Hart glasses. I know last week we spoke on Skinner. Not a big fan of this incarnation. You think they could have done?
Here's the thing about Steve Keirn.
Yeah.
He was on the short list when Backlund became champion.
Yeah.
He was the other guy in contention to be WWF champion. Eddie Graham was really pushing for him to be champion of the WWF. Vince goes with Backlund anyway because he was looking for the All-American boy. And the reason he was looking for the All-American boy, he didn't want to do another ethnic top baby faces because you couldn't have them lose because the Garden would literally riot.
Yeah.
You get heat on Bruno, people have heart attacks. And my grandfather was in the crowd for the Pedro run, and when Pedro lost, they're getting stabbed. Like they're rushing the ring. That's how beloved these guys were. So Vince was like, I can't really have this type of heat, so we're gonna tone it down a bit, and we're gonna put Backlund in the spot. But Steve Keirn, his dad was a war hero and all that kind of good stuff. So he was in contention for that spot. And I was kind of curious to see what a Steve Keirn WWF championship run from, I guess, 78 to 82 would have looked like.
Do you think he would have been a good champion?
I think so. Good promo. I don't think he wouldn't have lasted as long as Backlund. That for sure. I'm not saying that he's lazy or anything because he's not, but he's someone that liked to be home in Florida quite a bit. So I don't know if his run would have lasted that long, especially, although the WWF schedule wasn't as bad as it would become, in the mid 80s, it was still a grueling effort for sure.
Yeah. I remember going to WrestleMania and seeing Bob Backlund putting the old chicken wing on people, people paying him to do that. He's still around. He was a crazy champion. He was,
people will often give Backlund shit and say he wasn't over as champ, but if you go watch the crowd reaction, it was really, really strong. Now, when Backlund was champion, they wouldn't put him out there by himself. You know what I mean? He always had a lot of supports on the card. Would it be, hey, we're going to have Billy Graham and Dusty Rhodes on the card too, to kind of augment, Backlund's drawing ability to make sure that, he was positioned correctly and he was getting the appropriate reaction. I mean, they did some goofy stuff, like when his belt got broken, he started to cry, and his popularity was starting to wane towards the end. But he was strong for a while. I think a lot stronger than people give him credit to.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting to see a Steve Kern title run, but instead we got Skinner. So that's,
Skinner, the Alligator Man. How do you go from being part of the Fabulous Ones to an Alligator Man? I would never ever know.
He probably wanted to work, and he was like, hey, I'm getting a paycheck, and you got to feed the family. I mean, you do what you got to do. But the next match we had Randy Savage and the very, very, very all the way live Miss Elizabeth taking on Satan's child, Hitler himself, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Do you think Elizabeth got her boob job? Because her boobs got enormous in her WCW run. But do you think she had boobs before that? Or do you think that was the third boob job she had?
I don't know.
I want to get the lineage of Miss Elizabeth boob jobs.
Well, who wouldn't? I noticed them back then, but I did notice in her WCW run they had a lot more. They had more. The shirts and the outfits that she was on. There were a lot of NWO shirts when Savage was NWO that were just they were very tight and revealing. That was a WCW thing. I was a young man back then, and
WWE. I'm curious to see what a heel Elizabeth would have looked like in the WWF.
Could you see her as a heel?
She was heel when she's in the NWO.
Yeah, but I just think by then, I think
when she turned on Savage and joined What Up with Flair, and she was with Woman, and that kind of stuff. That stuff was interesting, and they're going around spending Savage's alimony money. That was funny. Yeah. So what they used, WCW did use her as the heel, and then she talked a little bit more in WCW. She wasn't bad on the mic.
No,
good enough. She wasn't Sherry Martel, but she was good enough on the mic.
Yeah, she was definitely.
She had a different type of charisma that didn't necessarily require her to speak all that much. Yeah.
Nope. Good thing she had some other assets that got over. But it's definitely, she wasn't the best talker, but she did. What were your thoughts on this match? It only went 6:25. Yeah, 6:25.
It's not a match per se; it's an angle.
Yeah.
Leading to another match, which the blow-off would be on Saturday's main event. Again, the match is whatever. It's the angle post-match that makes it, for sure. It's like a 2-star match with a 5-star angle attached to it.
You were a big fan of the angle?
Yeah, because that's fucking heat. That's ridiculous heat. It's almost like crossing the line. And if you listen to Jake Roberts' promo, it is closing the line, because basically he said when he slapped her, he came in his pants. That's basically what he said. But yeah, it's like, we talk about this all the time. It's like, with the world the way it is now, how do you get legitimate heat? Could you imagine that happening today? It probably wouldn't. That's one of the things that we often talk about, things you can't do, and I think most things you can't do today, if done right, that one is going to be rough to do in a 2020 environment. What's the equivalent to that? That would be what? Who's a female manager right now that's around that doesn't wrestle? 'Cause they all basically work now.
Yeah, there's not really. Any female valets.
That'd be okay. It's equivalent of fucking Randy Orton punching Renee Young in the face.
Oh yeah.
Even the diamond, if she gave him the RKO, that's different because that's more like a wrestling move. But if he just fucking hauls off and fucking slugs Renee Young in the face, just punches her, and that's why Jake didn't do the DDT on her. He just fucking slapped her. it's more impactful if it's not a wrestling maneuver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would definitely get bad press if that. I mean, it's funny when stuff like that happens. If I think people, don't. They think it's it's a real thing. I mean, it's like it's not an angle. They think, oh, that guy just hit a woman for no apparent reason. I mean, it's going to get bad press, especially back in now with Twitter and Facebook and all those other kind of social medias. Back then, they didn't have that. So I mean,
I'm sure it got because it's not like they took wrestling seriously like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a different aspect of it. The question is should it be done? And I'm saying absolutely. To get heat, yeah, for sure. Because if you're watching a movie or what have you, and someone punches your girlfriend or your wife in the face, you're going to go after them with reckless abandon. And that's okay in movies, but professional wrestling is weird because the wrestlers are real people.
Yeah, I mean,
and they'd be accusing no one accuses a movie to exploiting domestic violence like that. But you can't do it in wrestling, which is a weird dynamic, which I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand that. But
how do you get heat? How do you get heat? How do you get the right kind of heat too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of. I mean, it's kind of like now where they had the whole Tessa Blanchard. Sami Callihan angle. I mean, it was kind of equivalent to that. I mean, they don't have many intergender matches, or female versus male. I mean, and Sami just beat the crap out of Tessa. I mean,
yeah,
it's just one of those.
But did he beat the crap out of her, or was it in a wrestling context? Because she's a professional athlete, she's a wrestler, but it wasn't like a. There's a difference between violence and cartoon violence. That's why death matches to me are not violent. That's cartoony to me because it's cartoon violent. There's a big difference between sustainable violence and uncomfortable violence. I'll give you an example. Randy Orton hitting Nia Jax with an RKO is not offensive because it's cartoon violence. He's hitting her with a wrestling maneuver, and they're both wrestlers.
Yeah.
Randy Orton hitting Nia Jax in the back of the head with a hammer.
That's offensive.
That can be deemed offensive. You know what I mean? And that's where Tessa having this match because she's an athlete and she's going toe to toe with this dude, it seems to be okay. But if it's, Renee Young getting kicked in the face, I think it'll generate heat.
Yeah.
Where all right, the Sherry Martel, she used to get bumped around all the time, and you still don't think twice about it because it's fucking Sherry Martel, and she's probably tougher than the dude giving her the atomic drop.
Yep. I mean, she used to get manhandled by men a lot.
And from what I understand, all that shit was her fucking idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
She used to give it back too. It's like, she was stiff.
Yep.
Look at those shots she used to give. It was like, she wasn't working reckless, but she fucking hit you fucking hard.
Yep. She was definitely a great wrestler and a great manager. I mean, another superstar, gone way too soon. But the next match we had, the British Bulldog taking on the Warlord with my favorite manager, and I say that sarcastically, Harvey Whippleman.
I like Harvey. Downtown Bruno's good.
Yeah.
It's weird because Warlord and British Bulldogs have this kind of unique chemistry when they work matches together. So the matches were actually pretty good. It's probably, I would say that the British Bulldog was the Warlord's best opponent for sure, 100%. And they've been feuding since before WrestleMania. So this feud has been going on for fucking ever.
So yeah, it's kind of like
they had a match at WrestleMania 7 over the. I miss those kind of angles too. You can't escape my full Nelson, or who has the better full Nelson, who has the better finishing maneuver. They don't use that anymore as an angle, but
You probably were a big fan of the whole weightlifting challenge of the Warlord and the Barbarian and the Road Warriors. Were you a big fan of that?
Like, because Warlord's so much bigger than everyone too, and the Road Warriors are huge, and Barbarian is huge too. But fuck, Warlord, it's like he's on another fucking level. He does security now for all your favorite rappers. So there you go.
Well, man, he's got to use his assets for something good. I mean, make some legit money. But yeah, I mean, this match, went 11.
It was fine. It was fun. I like that. I like this match a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
it's better. It's better than it's better than it had any right being, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was Bulldog War. I mean, yeah, it was definitely. I think it was better than. I mean, haven't seen Skinner wrestler, but that's just
Well, again, it's like steroids and early '90s WWF. Holy shit, these guys are fucking juiced to the gills here.
Yeah, no.
And I love Davey Boy Smith, but he's ridiculous. He over the top right now. Like he's over the top right now.
Yeah, I mean, the things that over the top. I don't understand this pairing. The next match, Repo Man, Ted DiBiase, with Sensational Sherry. Of course, we were just talking about how badass of a woman she was, taking on El Matador and Virgil.
Well, if you watch the TV, you would know why these guys are paired up. $1 Million Man paid Repo Man to get back the $1 Million belt. That's the whole concept.
Hence the Repo Man. Yeah, he's repossessing it.
Right.
It's funny. Virgil, I think, actually still has the $1 Million belt, and he takes it around to his signings.
That's a replica. Come on.
Huh?
That's a replica. He doesn't have the real $1 Million belt.
I mean, I don't know who has that. Probably Vince.
WWE has it because they used it for the angle with Ted Jr. and stuff.
Oh, Ted Jr. That.
Are you accusing Virgil of stealing the $1 Million belt?
I am accusing him of being a thief. He stole the $1 Million belt. Just saying. I'm sure he's listening to it at a Olive Garden. Oh, I'm sorry. Is Olive Garden open yet? I'm sure it is, but
not yet.
I'm sure the world's largest Olive Garden in Times Square is probably going to be open pretty soon. I'm sure.
No, I live in New York, the home of really good Italian food.
Not the Olive Garden. Not the Olive Garden.
It's the point where if you're going, my wife loves Olive Garden, by the way. I like the breadsticks. It's all the fucking chains, but you cannot publicly admit to anyone in my neighborhood or that you go to Olive Garden because they look at you like you're a fucking joke. Yeah,
I mean, you are up in the part of the country that does have some great Italian food. So
the world's best, other than going to Italy.
Yeah, I mean, they have some pretty good food up there. I mean,
you go down south, it's ketchup with noodles.
Ketchup and
marinara sauce. Come on.
Where the hell do they ketchup and noodles?
Down south by you, they got no real Italian food.
No, I'm not a big spaghetti fan, but that's just
What do you eat when you go out to dinner?
I'm a meat eater, so anything a burger, a steak.
What kind of steak you like? You a porterhouse man?
Yeah, I like anything medium well. It's awesome.
Okay. That's
fair. I mean, hey,
you ever been to a legitimate steakhouse, or you eat at fucking Fridays?
No, I hate Fridays. God, Fridays is terrible. I don't think they even have a Friday.
Applebee's, you're an Applebee's man?
Yes, I'm an Applebee's.
You're an Applebee's?
I am.
I'm an Applebee's man. You're a Chili's man? I like Chili's. Chili's is not bad.
No, not a big Chili's fan.
But you never been to a Peter Luger's or a Ruth's Chris or any of those places?
Yep. And there's a place in Atlanta called Bones. And it's got the best steaks, best everything. So whenever...
you ketchup, man? You put ketchup on your steak? That's gross.
No, I don't put ketchup on my steak. Jeez. Not a
savage. Here's the thing about good steak. If you have to put anything on it, it's not a good steak. Yeah, you may get away with a little bit of butter. But if you have to douse it with ketchup or A1 sauce, then that steak's not good. Save that for shitty steaks. Good steaks. No, you take away all the flavor.
Well, man. We'll just have to see if they ever get a WrestleMania back down here in the Dirty South. Maybe he can take a trip down south and maybe there's a steakhouse on Bad Street. I Boy, you can hang out.
You ever Google Matt Bad Street USA?
I have never Googled myself. I mean, never Googled Bad Street, but I'm sure it is not a legitimate street. But I mean, ask Michael P.S. Hayes. I mean, the man's. It was funny. I the other day, one of my wife's friends had a fanny pack. I guess they're back in fad. I thought the only people who wore them were wrestlers or Michael Hayes. I mean, I think that guy still has this fanny pack from the 80s. I think that must be.
I have a leather one.
Huh?
I have a nice leather one in my closet. I haven't used it in years, though.
You have a fanny pack in your closet?
Mm-hmm. There's a picture of me and Triple H and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens, and I'm wearing my fanny pack. I'm also wearing an Ico Pro shirt, too, because I'm ridiculous.
Oh, isn't that great? I mean, learning a lot of great things about you tonight. I mean, just saying. Next match we had on the card. Oh, I mean, let's before we get to the main event, Undertaker Hogan. What was your takeaway from this Repo DiBiase Virgil El Matador match? I mean,
it was fine, perfectly acceptable wrestling. Again, you're bringing back the $1 million belt to Ted DiBiase, although he doesn't necessarily hold it. They don't do anything with it because he forms Money Inc. not too long after this.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I'm a big Ted DiBiase fan. I mean, I'm not a big WWF Ted DiBiase, but I'm a more Mid-Atlantic, early '80s, mid '80s Ted DiBiase. I mean, are you a bigger fan there? Or are you a bigger fan of him?
I'm trying to figure out when Ted DiBiase wrestled in Mid-Atlantic.
He wrestled in Mid-Atlantic.
What year was this?
I swore I saw him on Mid-Atlantic, but I mean, I could be. I could have.
I'm not saying that. I'm not calling you a liar or anything. I just don't remember it. I remember seeing him on Georgia Championship Wrestling. I saw him in Mid-South, early WWF. I don't necessarily remember him in Mid-Atlantic. He definitely didn't come in when they sold the Turner. I mean, when they sold Mid-South to Watts. That's why he went to WWF.
I mean, I could be mistaken. It could be Mid-South. It could. All my. I get all my early '80s because I know you're a fan of those promotions, but you never like to talk about them on the program because they don't ever lead to any big shows, correct?
Well, there's no big shows to watch. So, all right, so you get to see this angle where it's Buzz Sawyer taking on Roddy Piper, and they're aiming towards this dog collar match. But unfortunately, you don't see the dog collar match. So you see the angle leading up, you see all the great promos, and then after the Omni show, you go back and it's like, oh okay. And
then they're on to another
different angle. You know what I mean? And it changes.
Yeah, man.
So you don't see any blow-offs. You don't see what happened. Every once in a while, they'll show some clips or something from the Omni. Not necessarily full shows, although we're starting to get them on WWE Network, whatever was taped and wherever they can find and restore. Those are going up. No commentary, of course, but they're all going up. So I'll be curious to see those as we move along, as we move forward.
I mean, are you a big fan of the no commentary shows? I mean, I know that they didn't have the commentary back then.
They're hard. They're hard to watch. I'm not going to lie, because you're so used to watching it with commentary, and it kind of holds your attention better.
Yeah.
Like I prefer watching wrestling live in person. That's the best experience for professional wrestling. Is not necessarily conducive to television. I don't think, although most people consume their wrestling on television. House shows are definitely the preference. Pay-per-views, even you may want to skip a TV taping. They're not necessarily the greatest. So I'm accustomed to watching wrestling with no commentary. Watching wrestling on TV without commentary can be difficult. I would highly suggest getting someone to just talk over those things. I don't know who exactly would be the best bet. Jim Ross will probably he's done some other stuff, but obviously he's not there anymore. But having do you really want Michael Cole calling a match from that 79 in the Omni? Not really. No.
Nope, I do not. I don't. I mean, yeah. Get somebody that it was there, or an older commentator. I mean, like even a Jim Ross. I mean, he was.
Cornette would be your guy, but he's not too keen on working with WWE. So,
nope, we don't see that happening. But that brings us to the main event of course, of the event, that we see Hulk Hogan taking on The Undertaker. It was for the WWF World Championship. It was, 6 days removed from the title switch at Survivor Series. I mean, your thoughts on a rematch that fast?
I mean, that's the idea. I mean, if they had this angle kind of played out, again, you did it to get people to watch this show. So you want to have the rematch. It would have been on the next show regardless of what it would have been. This could have been the main event of Royal Rumble if they so chose. Again, not much of a match, more of an angle, because this explains that Hogan wins the belt back, and you got to explain why he gets stripped, and that's why Flair's out there. And he makes sure, like, Jack Tunney gets bumped, but Flair holds him up so you can see Hulk Hogan taking a charred corpse and throwing the ash in Undertaker's eyes, which is disgusting. So, referee's decision is final, but he stripped Hogan of the belt afterwards, and he put it up for grabs at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely not a good way to end the show, but I mean,
well, he didn't know that, so he wouldn't get stripped until the next TV show. So basically, off the air, Hogan, wins the championship again. Yay, fun, awesome, and then it's a dusty finish. Essentially, it's a quarter dusty finish.
Yeah, it was definitely, but I always kind of make fun of your channel, your YouTube channel, because it's got so many listeners or so many viewers, and well, I'm jealous. But if people, if they're not back to work, if they're still trying to find things,
first of all, you should watch it at work. Your job is less important than my YouTube channel.
Yeah, but how would our fans get to your YouTube channel and your Twitter page?
Don't you have a link in the description?
I do, but some people don't.
Don't
look
at the
at
description and click the fucking link.
Hey, a lot of our fans can't read, so just saying.
It's true. It's true.
It's damn true.
All right, so you go to YouTube, you go into the search bar, you type in Retro Wrestling Games Presented, and we'll bring up all 300 and close to 370 videos. So please watch them. They're awesome. They're so much better than this show. So go check those out.
Oh, you are such an ass.
I know.
Okay.
So
I'm
a New Yorker. What do you expect?
Yeah. Well, you know what? You may be an a-hole, but I'm gonna give you a choice. Okay. This is the first time ever. I'm gonna give you a choice. Choose one of the following that we will be covering next week on the program. I will give you an option of two, and only one that you can pick. You cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay. The first choice, we can cover SummerSlam 1990 or King of the Ring 1995.
King of the Ring 1995. That's King Mabel, isn't it? Ooh.
Yes.
Let's go King of the Ring 95.
Well, folks, you know what? We believe in being a fair podcast. We give our host the choice. We give the fans the choice, of course, folks. If you want to follow the podcast, which, according to our co-host, the great Alex G, is terrible compared to his YouTube channel. I mean, much better. I mean, that's bullshit, and I will just say that. That's bullshit. But if you don't believe us, keep on tuning in and go to our Twitter page. Of course, it's the RW Rewind and the rwrewind.com for all our episodes, for all our commentary, for links to our YouTube channel. If you want to buy some merchandise, because, all legitimate podcasts and YouTube channels have merchandise. And the ones that don't, well, I mean, they're Alex G's channel. But no, folks, legitimately watch his channel. It is a great add-on to this podcast and to hear and see into the mind of a fantasy booker. I mean, wouldn't you say you're having fun booking the fantasy AWA?
Yeah, so we recently came off our AWA big show or pay-per-view. where Ricky Steamboat retained the AWA World Title over Bam Bam Bigelow, and now he's going to see his next challenger, and his next challenger is going to be Jerry the King Lawler. Now, Lawler had a legitimate gripe here. He was never defeated for the AWA World Title. He was stripped of it. So Lawler's back in the AWA looking to kind of finish his controversy and take the belt off of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Yeah, poor
Very
Ricky.
interesting.
Poor Ricky Steamboat. But, folks, next week we are getting in the time machine and we are going 4 years into the future. We are going to 1995. King of the Ring. We're going to get to see King Mabel being crowned. Oh, I just love a King Mabel. Are you a big fan of King Mabel?
Yeah. Mabel's awesome.
He is legitimately a badass. Would not want to mess with that guy. But for the great Alex G, as always, I am David Fine. We will see you next week. And of course, we'll talk to you in the past.
238 pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis,
Here comes Mr. Pro. Mr.
Andre the
Pro
Giant.
Gonna get his wet set on the bruiser.
Number one, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
His opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.
Quand même, t'as aimé des... Oui,
pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis,
Here comes Mr. Crow. Mr.
Andre the
Crow
Giant.
gonna get his legs in on the bruiser. Hulk Hogan.
Number 1, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
his opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.